oh, my corporate job was, so sexy. And so I was so respected and I had all this going for me. And I remember one night, like sitting around talking to my husband and he's like, babe, you've changed so many more lives doing what you're doing than you ever did.
Hi, everyone. This is Christine Miles. Welcome to today's episode of Shine a Light. I am so excited. I have my guest here, Tara Renze. Welcome, Tara. Nice to see you.
Hi, Christine. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
You're welcome, from Kansas City. There we go. The nicest place in the U.S. The nicest people.
I am a born and bred Kansas girl. I've actually lived in Kansas my entire life. I grew up in a really small town of like 350 people in north central Kansas. And then I went to the University of Kansas in Lawrence. And then my husband and I met in college and he got a job in Kansas City. So I kind of ended up here. But I have to tell you, we love living here. It's been a great place to raise our kids. And there's a lot of really nice people in the Midwest.
They're such polite, coming from Philly, they're such polite drivers too. They let you in.
Well, just so you know, they're probably cussing you behind, but with a smile, like waving at you and then like saying things behind, the windshield. But
that's right. I believe that. I had somebody from Kansas City once say that the real meeting happens in the parking lot because we're too polite to say it in front of each other. But before we go any further, because I'm already having fun, let me tell my listeners about you. You're an author, keynote speaker, love this, emotional intelligence and positive intelligence practitioner, podcaster, thought leader, wife, mother, who is redefining how we unleash purpose, level up our success, and create sustainable happiness and fulfillment in all aspects of our lives. After 2 decades completing successfully in corporate leadership and social selling, I want to go back to social selling, by the way.
Okay.
You started writing and keynote speaking to empower others to be who they can be. Be who they came to be. That's very different.
That's
be who
correct.
they came to be and create, own, and live the life they deserve. Desire, envision, and deserve. Your true passion and talent is guiding others to harness and realize their full potential. Really special the way you're approaching the work in the world. So I appreciate you being here.
Oh my gosh, it's an honor to be here. I think anytime I had the opportunity to inspire people to be their best selves, to be who they came to be, I take it. So glad to be here.
I got tripped up on that a little bit. And I think it's so important because it's who they came to be, not who they were told to be, not who they, that's a very, so start there, please. Start there. What do you mean by that?
So my first son was born in 2007, and I was fortunate enough that my grandmother was still alive, and she wrote a letter to him. And the week that he was born, her letter with, the sweet little, it was like what you would think a great grandmother would write, right? To her great grandson, her first great grandchild. She put it on this beautiful powder blue stationery. It was in her, wobbly old lady handwriting, but she signed the letter with her life's advice. She said, be who you came to be. Love will guide you. And, as a new mom, it totally took my breath away that I was holding this little baby. And it was kind of that first realization of like, oh my gosh, I am going to get to watch this little tiny baby grow into a man, and I'm going to get to watch him be who he came to be. And then my husband and I, we kind of glommed onto that. It really became like this, it was such a profound sentence. I mean, no one's ever said this before. Just, I trademarked it. We had no issues. Like, people say, be you, be yourself, be who you're supposed to be who you want to be, but be who you came to be. It just hits different, right? It's like that you were put here predestined with all of your own gifts, talents, authenticities, passions, and purpose, if you're willing to explore that and go all in on that. So we really made it our parenting mantra that we would raise our boys to be who they came to be, not who we wanted them to be, not who the world wanted them to be. And then, I started using it in my corporate trainings and leadership. And it just kind of started evolving and people really loved it. And so I made it my life's work.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because it came to be is that there is some predetermination, and that it is something that's kind of wired in us, but we often need to discover it. That's the challenge, isn't it? In some ways.
It's a lifelong mission. I think that so many people, we think be who you came to be, we grow up, be who you came to be means, what do you want to do professionally?
Yeah.
Do you want to start a family? And then you're going to work. Like, that's it. Like, so what happens is we get into our midlife or what's happening even now, so with younger generations, is they're like, who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I outside of a professional or a husband or a wife or a mother? And we lose sight of that. So being who we came to be is a lifelong mission of self-discovery, and knowing that who you were 5 years ago is not who you are today. And how amazing is it that you get to keep up leveling and experiencing new versions of you, new
Yeah.
transformations. And, I think it's interesting. I've been married for 25 years. And so
Congratulations.
often I look at my husband and I'm like, oh my God, I love you so much. And I have so much to know about you still. And I think
Yeah.
it's because we really live our entire lives. We parent around, we show up for each other around this notion of be who you came to be, which means that I don't know who he is and who he's going to be, in 5 years or 10 years. And how wonderful that we get to experience that together.
Yeah. We're just peeling back the onion an entire lifetime, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, can
yeah.
you imagine if it was like be who you came to be until age 40 and then coast it out? You'd be like, oh,
Well,
wow, this is
this is
it.
this is, and I'll get on my soapbox. I think this is part of what I have the issue with in terms of how at least in the States, how we're approaching a college education, is that we're expecting young people to know what they want to do for the rest of their lives, and that often in education we're prescribing almost like a job title in the
Hmm.
degrees, and so it can
Hmm.
feel very limiting. And I mean, it's hard to make that kind of a decision at such a young age when that's not it feels so permanent, right? It just
Yep.
feels so permanent because you have to
Hmm.
invest so much. So the idea that we widen this and realize that it's like self-awareness, that's a lifelong mission if you allow it to be too, isn't it? We don't stop becoming self-aware. We just finish one aspect of it and then move into the next.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So take us back. So you said before we did the intro that you grew up, you're a Kansas City girl. So take us back to when you were very little and young. What kind of a child were you? Like what was different or special about you as
Yeah.
a little
So,
girl?
well, I grew up in this very small town. I have two older brothers, and we're all within, like, I have a brother who's 12 months older than me, and then one who's 3 years older than me. So I'm very, very close with my family. I had a very simple childhood. We rode our bikes around town. We watched game shows. We caught lightning bugs at the park while one of us was playing baseball or, doing our thing. And it was a very, very simple lifestyle that was very family focused, faith focused, and community focused.
And what were you like? What made you unique or special as a little kid?
I was actually, when I was really little, I was very shy,
Okay.
which we laugh about. Like, we watch old home movies, and my mom, I'm like, am I not putting on a show? She's like, oh no, you would never you didn't want to show your face to the camera. Like, you would
Oh,
act so shy. And then I kind of, just slowly started to come out of my shell. And I was a little bit of a tomboy, kind of, but not really. I joke that, so I was the first girl in 4 generations on my dad's side. So I grew up around a lot of
oh,
men, like a very alpha male families, but they were so excited to get a girl that
sure.
they were like, oh my God, we have a girl. It was dolls and tiaras and pink and all this other stuff, but they were literally like, put on your tiara, we're going to go fishing. Um,
Nice.
so it was honestly like, I feel like has to be like a way to parent girls, because what it did for me, like, they celebrated my femininity. They allowed me to be a total girl, but I was always allowed to sit with the boys, to go fishing with the boys. I mean, I'd go sit in a deer stand. I did it all. And because of that, I have always showed up unapologetically feminine and very female. I love makeup. I love jewelry. I love, you know, fashion. I love everything girly, but I will go like sit around and watch sports and drink beers with the guys, and I love it. And
Yeah.
and and I was never intimidated by that. And I, like, when I got to the corporate world, like, honestly, I guess ignorance is bliss, but I never once did I think, well, I'm not going to get this job because I'm a girl.
Yeah.
It
Well,
never crossed my mind.
it does. So that's, I mean, it's so interesting. And I didn't grow up, my dad didn't, and mom didn't treat me with the same social norms of the time as well. I probably, I didn't get the tiara, so I have a little tiara envy because I just got more of the you can do anything a boy can do, which was
Yeah.
great. And not that I wasn't celebrated as a woman, but it was more like, don't let that limit you. So that it's so important from a parenting aspect too of what we focus on that girls can do, because obviously the confidence you've had to have, and I'd like to hear more about your work in corporate and what led to kind of how you where you got to today. But a lot of male dominated sales is very male dominated, as we know.
Very much.
It,
Every organization I've worked for was very male dominated. And my family owned a community bank. And so they were in banking and finance, also very male
yep.
dominated. And a lot of the speaking I do now is in for women in very male dominated industries. And it's just back to this permission to be unapologetically female,
Yeah.
to be who we are and who we came to be, but also to be able to stand our ground in very male dominated spaces. And I will say, like, I'm a boy mom now. It's so interesting that I just keep,
Yeah. You
I'm
flip
around a
them.
lot of boys.
Yeah.
Um, but I believe that, people do love, like, men love strong women. And especially in the workforce, like, we need strong female leaders.
Yeah.
And I do think that, perception is reality. And for me, no one ever said, you're going to be discriminated against. You're not going to get this. You're not going to make as much money. It never crossed my mind. And so I always asked for more. I always
Yeah.
just expected more.
Yeah.
And honestly, a lot of times, like, ask and you will receive.
Yeah. Well, I do think we do have to ask more still than
Yes,
men. And so, at least in my experience, but it is so important that we look at that and empower ourselves as women and men to advocate for ourselves, right? We know that
100%.
the balances are happening. So I'm just imagining you fishing and doing all those things. But, for me, sports prepared me very early for,
Very much so. Yes.
were you an
Thank
athlete as
God
well?
for sports for girls. It's
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah. So, I mean, but wherever you get that, like small town, whether it really helps propel you into rooms where you figure it out. But so tell us about the social selling. I mentioned that in your intro too. Talk more about that.
Yeah, yeah. So, I went to college, I got out of school. I've always been very ambitious, very driven. I went to work in the corporate world. I actually worked for careerbuilder.com. So I worked on the job boards back in the early 2000s, right when the internet was peaking, really the first way that anyone could find a job without going to a newspaper or working with a
Yeah.
headhunter. So it was a really cutting edge technology. I was in the enterprise sales division. So we sold to Fortune 500 executives, moved into sales leadership, did a lot of sales leadership, moved into sales training. And then along the way, I had a couple of kids and I was like, whoa, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I was so confused about my ambitions. And, suddenly when I thought, and I was traveling 70% of the time, and the thought of like being a C-level executive at one point in time was like, that's what I'm going to do. And then I threw motherhood on top of it. And it didn't change my ambition, but it just changed me. It changed
Yeah.
like where I wanted to spend my time. So I actually decided to make a total pivot. Like, never in a million years would I think I'd climb the corporate ladder, like completely bust my butt to get to the top and then start social selling. But I found this company called Stella and Dot. If anyone's listening, it was a
Yeah.
jewelry company out of California, and a gal from Stanford started it. She had done a bunch of tech stuff, and she was like, I love jewelry. And she met this gal who was a jewelry designer. They named it after their grandmother, Stella and Dot. And they were looking for women who wanted to, build out the brand in different areas of the country. So I was one of their founding
Wow.
leaders. And I basically helped, recruit and train and sell jewelry. And I loved it. And, it was interesting. I think because Jessica was Stanford grad, she had so much experience in the tech industry, what
Yeah.
she had done, the companies that she had built, that she attracted this really high level females, that a lot of them like us that were college educated, that had gone into the workforce, and for one reason or another wanted a little more flexibility. And so it definitely was a journey, and it was really fun. And, it was a mix of social, meaning like social in-person selling, social online selling. Like, it really was when social media started peaking. So we were kind of pioneers in how do you promote a brand online? How do you sell online? How do you move your network online? And gosh, it taught me so much also just about entrepreneurship and starting a business. So it kind of gave me, I felt like this training ground. So when I started my own business, I felt like I had this kind of perfect mix of like this great corporate background with this, entrepreneurial,
Yeah.
working with individuals, and then starting my own thing. So
Yeah. And I would imagine also the combination of some of the things you had done from the tech standpoint, and bringing that kind of into as an innovator to get that off the ground, because this is the first time. This is nothing now, but this is where it all started, right? It's like now we know this is what's happening, but the brand yourself, the brand, the jewelry, the brand, all of it
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
together, right?
I mean, ultimately, it was this new innovation of what used to be your old school direct sales of like a
Yeah,
Tupperware party.
yeah,
I know. And it was like very high tech. I mean, we had iPads and we took, like, it wasn't like we had order forms and everyone, like, people were ordering and it would come directly to them. Like, it didn't come to the host. Like, it
yeah,
was this very much socially driven for women who wanted an evening or an afternoon of connection, but also a little shopping. I mean, most women love jewelry. Like, there was only
yeah.
one person I ever met in 8 years that was like, I hate jewelry. I was like, well, this is not for you. Like,
You're at the
this
wrong
is not for
party.
you.
You're at
Yes.
the wrong party.
Yes, this is not going to be for you. And then she was like, didn't want to be exclusive. She's like, but my mother-in-law loves jewelry and my daughter loves jewelry. And, so then it was kind of like,
Yeah, there was. Yeah,
it was very high tech. I learned a lot about relationships, I mean, interpersonal skills, leading in the corporate world and leading in a 1099
yeah.
independent sales world is a very different type of leadership.
Let's talk
And
about that.
so,
Let's break that down. What are your insights there? What's the difference?
well, I think there's a huge difference between inspiring people to want to work versus, coming to work. Like when I led sales teams in the corporate world, these people had an amazing salary. They had an amazing opportunity to hit, goals and to win trips and to max out their comp plans.
Right,
And regardless of whether they were doing that or not, until they got put on like a PCP plan because they weren't performing, like they had a nice salary.
right.
Where in this business, I mean, it truly was like, hey, we have to give them the tools that they need, the education they need, but we also have to build a community where they want to come to work, they want to be
Mm.
part of the brand, they feel compelled to, essentially go work for. It was a commission only job. Now
Yeah,
you had the opportunity to kind of build a business with, a network of other people that wanted to sell jewelry,
but no
but
airbag. No airbag.
yeah, yeah. And
Right.
so it truly was an amazing opportunity experience. And I met so many amazing people through that. And I think it also, gave me this extra sense of confidence in who I am and what I want to do, because there was some judgment, Christine, of like, wow, she's leaving her corporate job to go sell jewelry.
Right.
Is she having a midlife crisis? What is wrong with her? Oh my
Yeah.
God, she's part of a pyramid scheme. And none of it was true, and there was some of those like rose-colored glasses of looking back of like, oh, my corporate job was, so sexy, and so I was so respected and I had all this going for me. And I remember one night like sitting around talking to my husband and he's like, babe, you've changed so many more lives doing
Mhm.
what you're doing than you ever did.
Yeah.
So don't ever let if someone saying something about you or what you're doing, like, why you're doing this, why you love it, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. We do get caught up on what the perception will be rather than what's going to make us happy or what works for us. It
Yes,
seems
we
like
do.
that's very connected to the message that you're sending in the world today, in
Yeah.
terms of. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just I think it is like being who we came to be.
Mhm.
And, I talk about these things called butterfly goals, which are these wildly transformational personal goals that we have for ourselves. And I recently did a keynote and it was for a bunch of attorneys. And there was a female attorney there. And she came up to me after and she's like, I know what my butterfly goal is. She's like, but I'm so scared to do it because people are going to think something's wrong with me. I was like, well, what's your goal? And she said, I want to work at a cosmetics counter on Saturdays.
Good for
She said,
her.
I love makeup. I've always been the person since I was a teenager that did all my friends' makeup
Huh.
for prom, for everything. To this day, people are still like, will you do my makeup before a girls' night out? She's like, I love it so much. She's like, but I'm afraid if I go do that, people are going to think either something's wrong with my marriage, that something's wrong with my career, that I'm getting fired, that I'm having a midlife crisis. And I just like, who cares what anyone else thinks?
Right.
And guess what? 6 months is going to pass and they're going to be like, oh, well, I guess she's just doing this and you're going to love it. And she went and did this. And she said, I can't even tell you how much better my life's gotten
Huh.
because I work as an attorney. It's very attorney, right?
Yeah.
It's very legal.
Look, you and
She
I
gets
went,
to go,
what?
yeah,
What
she
is
gets to go on Saturdays now and have this outlet of making women feel great, helping them with their makeup. She's like, it's just changed my life because she's gotten back that identity of what she wanted to do versus what the world expected of her.
Yeah. Well, look, I went through a divorce in 2015, and nobody wants to go through a divorce, even if you want the divorce. And I was very fortunate; it was amicable, and he was my best friend. And but
Right.
part of the worry is, what are people going to think?
Right.
What are people going to think? I'm in the business of relationships. I'm in the business of listening. The story we tell ourselves about why we should or shouldn't do something, and then it was like, it wasn't like a big deal. And I don't mean that people didn't care, but it was like I was so much more hung up on obviously losing that part of my life, but also how that perception was going to
Mhm.
inform me. And I think this is what happens. This is part of the self-awareness and emotional intelligence, is what story am I telling myself about what I think other people are going to say, and how is that informing my decisions? You lock
Right.
into that, you open up a lot more opportunity for yourself, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And get this, 80% of our thoughts every day are negative, biased, and repetitive. So not only are we telling ourselves negative stuff 80% of the time,
Yeah.
we're making up stories. Wait, we like the whole thing of like, what are other people going to think of me? Just so you know, most people are not sitting around thinking about you. And if
No.
they are, and they're not thinking good things about you, they're not your raving fans. They're not people that you want in your life anyway. And so we have to be mentally fit enough, first off, to be able to know like what is reality and what are these crazy things that
Yeah.
we're making up in our head, because your mind, was built to protect you. And when you're in growth mode, that's not a great thing because it's going to, sabotage you
Sure,
most of the
sure.
time. But we can get mentally fit enough to be like, oh my gosh, I'm not my thoughts. Like I'm thinking this, but it's not a truth.
Yeah.
And I get to choose how I'm going to show up. And I'm going to tell myself, oh my God, you're just making stuff up. Like I do this. Like I'm, I study this. I'm certified in it. And I still find myself that sometimes I'm like, oh my God, you're in a rabbit hole. This is such baloney. Like
Well,
you
the
just made
brain
all this
is
stuff up.
it's very powerful. And I will say, even if people say, of course people have, we joked about it earlier, we have the conversation in the parking lot. That's human nature, and that's okay too, because people will get over it. And
Yes.
most people,
Yes.
the people that don't get over that are the ones that you probably don't want to keep around. but,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
everybody's going to have their own, oh my gosh, I can't. You're working at a makeup counter, but that's okay as long as you have the why, what it does for you. If it's,
Right.
as long as it's
Right.
not harming anybody else, of course, that's always the caveat. But yeah, so I
Yeah,
think
I mean, I think that we waste so much time worrying about this, and I use musicians as one of my muses in my keynote when we talk about owning it, owning who we are. Who are we writing music for on a daily basis? You think about a musician, like they are one of the most criticized
yeah,
artists, out there, right? Because people like certain types of music and not other types of music. Now, that doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just a personal preference.
your
Like we
preference.
don't like everyone. We don't like every type of music. We don't like every type of food. We don't like every type of books. Like we are individually wired for certain things that we like, which means naturally not everyone's going to like everything that you're up to, but that doesn't make you a bad person.
Yeah,
It just means that like, you're not that person's cup of tea. And so if a musician tried to write a song that pleased the masses, they would have never been famous.
yeah,
But they write the music that's in their heart. They write what speaks to them, and they write, for their fans. And then guess what? They find their raving fans and the people who are wildly obsessed with them.
yeah,
And then they don't worry about other people. I mean, think about Taylor Swift. I mean, whether you like her or not, she's very controversial. By far the most successful female musician in history.
yeah.
And she still gets booed at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Yeah, that can really distort our thinking though. So how, so, so the lawyer comes to you and says, this is what I want to do. And obviously you're having that conversation, who cares? But what are the steps that get you unstuck if you're stuck? Like, what do you help us break it down? What do you say to somebody that says, I can't get out of my own way. I can't stop those thoughts and that's still inhibiting me. How do you get to those butterfly goals?
yes. So I call it the permission gap. Most people, so she was in what I call the permission gap, which is knowing what you want to do and then actually giving yourself permission to do it.
Yeah.
So once you actually say like, you know what, I'm going to go do this. Like, and who knows, she might have tried it and then been like, I don't know, I did it.
Sure.
Like it wasn't what I thought. But we live in this permission gap because usually of this, we're too tired. We're too old. We think the time's passed. We think other people are going to think we're crazy. We don't believe it's possible. So we sit in this permission gap. So I call it the wings methodology to actually get your butterfly goal to take flight. Is first off, write it down and then decide you're going to do it. Take the first I is the first imperfect step. So whatever it is, like that, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like these goals are not about doing more; they're about becoming more. So there's really not like a path. Like you have to figure it out. You know, my grandmother always used to say it's only a mistake if it happens twice.
Yeah.
The first time you just needed to learn the lesson. So think of it that way. Like I'm not making mistakes. I'm just learning along the way. So you make the first imperfect step. That's I. N
Well,
is never fly alone.
I want to stop for a second because you said a lot of really important things. So
Okay.
because I think my experiences, and you're an author, and I've written a book, and I always say there's a difference between being a writer and writing a book. I'll put myself in the latter category. Somebody said to me, "You're a writer." I said, "Well, I'm an author. That doesn't mean I'm actually a writer." But the first rule of thumb in writing is to realize that perfection will get in front of progress, and it's a climb to putting 50,000 words on a piece of paper that are perfectly imperfect. And if you get wrapped around it has to be perfect, you're not writing that book, right? And this is what I hear you saying if we just break it down and if we let go of it doesn't matter what the first step, it can be imperfect. That's just progress in and of itself.
Absolutely. I think we worry about being ready.
Yeah.
You're never going to be ready. Like you get ready we get confidence by trying things, by doing things, by working on it along the way. And so I do call it the first imperfect step because so much of it is just like taking that first, like just deciding you're going to do it and figure it out.
Right. Step one. It's like nobody ever regretted going to the gym. Once you get there, it's hard to get there. All right. So step two.
So write it down. Step one is committing to it, saying like, this is my actual goal. This is what I'm going to do. So that's the first one. Imperfect step is the second. N is never fly alone. You got to tell someone. You got to like, don't go at it alone on your own. You know, my original butterfly goal was to get cast on this game show. And my childhood goal was always to be on a game show. And I got into my 40s. And of course I was like, God, imagine this, you're still living in Kansas and you haven't been cast on the game show. So I was like, I'm going to resurrect this stupid goal of mine to get on a game show. And so I did, I wrote it down. I took the first imperfect step, which for me was like, oh, I'm going to start applying online. So I started applying online, but it was a dead end to nowhere. So I was like, never fly alone. I got to start telling people about this. I started telling people like, you know, I would go to networking events or anywhere and they'd be like, what are you up to? I'm like, well, I'm starting my journey as an author and a speaker, and I'm trying to get on a game show. Now, people thought I was crazy. Okay. A lot of people were like, a game show? What? I'm like,
yeah. Does that relate?
Yeah. It's this wildly audacious childhood goal of mine that I've just decided that I'm actually going to do it. And, you know, so I started never flying alone, just kept telling people. And then one day, Christine, I was at a networking event and this gentleman said, you're never going to believe this. I was on a game show and I have the casting agency's email, so I can give it to you.
Wow. And what was there a specific game show or any game show?
It was $100,000 pyramid. Now I would have taken any game show, but that was the one that I wanted to be on.
You wanted the dream. Okay. So tell me more.
Yes.
Then what happened?
So I got on the game show and had an epic failure. I said Lance Armstrong was an astronaut, lost 37,500, got roasted by Michael Strahan, who was like, you think you're going to ride your bike to the moon? And then I, had an epic comeback. I ended up winning over $100,000.
Wow. And that's under pressure. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you.
So it goes back to the whole thing of like, the imperfect step is we learn as we go along, right? I mean, expect setbacks, turn them into comebacks. Like it's part of the process of growing. So G is GSD, get stuff done. Which means like it doesn't happen overnight. It's like you have to keep working at it. You have to keep trying. You have to keep figuring it out and going with it, because if you don't continue to try, like you fail. And I think that's like, this is the primary difference between a butterfly goal and like a traditional goal, which is about doing more. And it's why people often fail, is because like they say they're going to go to the gym and then they miss a couple weeks at the gym and then they're like, I'm done. Where if you sign up for a marathon, and you actually had that was your butterfly goal of like, I'm going to go get on this, I'm going to go run this marathon. If you missed a couple workouts, you're still signed up for the marathon,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And then the final one is just stick with it. It's just we just stick with it. We just keep doing it. Like we're committed to it, and we're focused more on the growth versus the outcome. And I think
Mm.
that's the real
The
key.
process.
The process, the growth.
Process.
Like
Yeah.
the growth happens during the outcome, and it's why I call them butterfly goals, because we all know about the process of a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. Like
Right.
it's not like it snaps its fingers and is like, poof, I'm a butterfly. It's like this whole evolution of embracing change, embracing the unknown. Completely, the caterpillar completely dissolves itself in the chrysalis,
Yeah.
and then rebuilds. And then the hardest part of that entire transition scientifically is the butterfly, breaking out of the chrysalis and shooting all the beautiful ink through its wings so it can take flight.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why we just stick with it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also it transformation doesn't have to look like a total life reboot either. It
No.
just well, I think that we want change, and what change looks like doesn't have to mean that I totally uprooted my life. It just made I made my life a little better because I'm now fulfilling more of what I love, what I want to do, my passion is, what I came to be, right? That's
Mhm.
part of what you're saying. I mean, I'm thinking about just the power of putting that in the universe, not only telling somebody, but just putting it in the universe repeatedly that you wanted to be on a game show, and then it shows up. It's really,
Yeah.
there's something
We
to
get what
that.
we believe. We get what we believe. We don't get what we deserve. And we have to believe in ourselves beyond reason. And I think that, so much of I noticed what you said earlier, like we send these kids to college and we expect them to figure out what they're going to do for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Well, that is what they're going to do for work, which can grow and evolve. But there's a great Harvard research study that was done about why do people burn out, and why do these high performing achievers who seemingly have everything in life, they've
Yeah.
got the job, they've got the family, they've got the money, they've got but what happens is they tie all of their identity to achievement and to work,
Yeah.
and they lose sight of who they are in that equation. And so these types of goals, these butterfly goals, these personal goals actually fuel professional growth. They fuel innovation within organizations. They fuel culture. And in this age of AI right now, when everyone is saying, guess what? Your skills may or may
Yeah.
not matter, because
Right. Right.
they're figuring out ways to replace human skills. You can't AI your self-awareness and your personal passions that make you who you are. And that's ultimately is what's going to continue to fuel leadership, innovation, growth within organizations, is that human aspect of who are we as humans underneath our technical skills that we have learned. And some of those will be replaced by AI and some of them won't, but they can never replace you.
Well, I think that's an important distinction, because I think, I was at a networking event yesterday, and it was around wealth management and financial planning. And it was very interesting. And this came up, is that skills are different than humans. What you just
Mhm.
said is that we're going to replace skills. That doesn't, and that means jobs are going to change. That's absolutely what's going to happen, what we're doing for work. But so that's where the other skills that you're describing, the human skills, and your curiosity, your creativity, your critical thinking, how you show up, those are the skills that we need to build and develop
Mhm.
to kind of get ready for the other skills going away, which I've always believed they are fundamentally as critical, but we haven't put as much focus on it. But AI is kind of like, nope, here we go.
Yep.
If you want to
Yep.
stand out, right?
Yeah, I mean, the emotional intelligence statistic that everyone always throws around is like, hey, 58% of your professional success is directly tied to your emotional intelligence, which is how you show up, how you navigate your emotions, how you make other people feel.
Yeah.
That number, that 58%, is going to start to skyrocket,
Yep.
because the other, 42%, right, was your technical skills. Well,
Right.
so much of that is now going to be AI. Like someone can take over those technical skills. So our best leaders, our best organizations, our best cultures are going to be fueled by people who are emotionally intelligent, bring out the best in other people, are able to be assertive and empathetic at the same time. They have great reality testing in an age of AI where no one knows what's real and what's not. They're grounded, they're optimistic, but they're also highly self-aware and they have a good sense of self-regard. Like all those things go into that.
Well, and I heard you, as I was doing a little bit of research on you, I heard you say it's okay if you have a bad day. It's that you don't make someone else have a bad day as a result of you. So emotional intelligence could just be called a lot of emotional maturity. It's really being able to be aware of your moods, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and being in control of them in the midst of crisis, struggle, difficulty. And that's, again, not perfect either, but when you have that, you're going to rise to the top. I was also listening, just going back to something else you were saying, I call it corporate jail a little bit, that we can get into, because we love, if we are making good money and if we are in roles but we're not completely satisfied, I would think your butterfly goals are even more important, because that's how you're going to fuel yourself if you're kind of not totally fulfilled in your job, but financially it's secure, it makes sense, because not everybody's going to do what you did, which is, I'm going to go out and just do something completely off the reservation that people are going to go, are you crazy?
Right.
But I was hearing that that really our satisfaction in life, and this is a real privilege, is if you make it to $500,000, that's pretty much where it taps out. After that, that much more money doesn't make you happier.
Right.
That gives you in that range up to 500, you're getting a quality of life. But after that, all the rest of the happiness has little to do with the money. And I think we lose sight of that. So I think it's so important what you're doing, because you're helping people find other things in their world within themselves, even if it's so outside the box that says this is how you tap into what really makes you happy.
Yeah, it makes you a human, right? I did a large butterfly goal workshop with a very large insurance company, and these are type A people, right? It was the sales folks. So you got to know these goals were like, I'm going to run an Ironman. I'm going to do, like, they were these big goals, which were awesome. I mean, there was
an elephant. Yeah.
There was a table. One of the guys signed up to do an Ironman on site. They had ordered t-shirts for the entire team, like all these big goals. And then there was this one guy, and he gets up to share his, and he's like, I feel kind of crazy. Like, people are starting podcasts, running marathons, writing books, all this. He's like, I really want to grow a tomato garden.
Yeah.
And everyone just paused, and they were like, everyone loved that goal, maybe more than some of these other ones, and so I said, tell us about this. Why a tomato garden? He's like, does everyone love like homegrown tomatoes, right? There's nothing, you can't buy them at a superstore. You have to get that from someone who's grown it in their garden and handed it to you from their own hand. Like, if it makes more than one transport, it's not as good. Yeah. So he said, I've always loved them. I've tried many times. I failed. He said, either they get too much sun, don't have enough water, the bugs get them, the rabbits have gotten them. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, now he's like, I'm going to figure it out this time, because I understand that it's like the get stuff done, figure it out, take the first imperfect step, and then stick with it. And so months went by, and I get this message from him, and he's like, he sends me this picture of like all these different types of tomatoes. And he was like, I can't tell you how life-changing this has been. Like, and I was like, tell me about this. He's like, one of the best things was taking him into the office and sharing that with the people. Yeah. And the stories of like, I had the best BLT last night with your homegrown tomato, and just that sense of pride. So what that did, though, was like, it created camaraderie, it created culture, it created belonging, but it also created tenacity within this man of like figuring it out. We learn so many of these skills, not from what we're learning a technical skill at work, but actually the personal goals. It's why kids do sports, right? It's not because they're all going to become NBA athletes or, compete in the NFL, but they learn a lot of lessons of leadership, of camaraderie, of tenacity, failure, how to handle getting cut from teams, like
Yeah.
all that stuff, right? It's why kids do sports. And it's like, we stopped doing all these types of things for ourselves. And I was like, you don't need to quit your job or cut your hair. Just go figure out your butterfly goal.
That's right. I mean, it's an and, right? It's not an or, it's an and.
Yeah.
It's an and. And he didn't have to go for a run, which I am as some
Oh, thank God. I hate running.
as a former athlete who only would like to trace a ball to run. That's all, so
Yeah.
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 But I love that spirit of giving, and then I can only imagine the exchange and how people are rooting for each other in those goals when they set those goals is
Oh my
also
gosh.
part of what's so magnificent about this.
It is, I mean, more high fives, more, oh my God, I love that.
Yeah.
Last week I did one in Nashville, and the what was coming out of it was like, I want to learn how to surf. I gave up on this idea. One of them was I've always wanted to be a beekeeper. Like I want to go set up some hive.
I've been to beekeepers places. It's
I was like, oh
interesting.
my gosh, that's one of them that I loved was I just want to be my own handyman. I actually know how to do a lot of stuff, but if I learned now and with AI and
Yeah.
chat, I could start doing. I could put some built-ins in my house, learn how to play harp. One of them, my favorite one was this man said, I've always wanted to adopt and raise 2 donkeys. I
Okay.
was like, okay, like do it. Like, the people who put chickens in their backyard, I'm like, more power to you. Can I please have some eggs?
Yeah, right.
You
That's
know?
great. Well, it's also I would imagine that it's you get to know people and they get to know each other so much more deeply, which is, I'm a believer from a listening side. This is the power of learning how to listen as well, is that it's not just that you're learning, it's that you're learning about the other person, about the world around you,
100%.
and that's what is really the gift in all this, is that
Yeah.
when you learn that, just like you learn to set these goals, you gain so much else from the experience of others, which is really
Yeah.
what makes it so.
Well, you find out, what people are aligned with, and that's one of the things. So a butterfly goal has to be transformational. It has to be aligned.
Mm,
It has to be brave. So it has to be like something like, I don't know, I've kind of given up. Gives you those butterflies a little bit,
yeah,
and then it has to be expansive, meaning like it either expands you, it's expansive within your community, it inspires other people. And I love that you just said like, oh, it didn't have to run. Like that's how I am. Like so many people set goals because
yeah,
they think it's what they should do, or someone told them they should do it, and then they don't achieve it, and that actually just fuels, feeling bad about themselves.
yeah,
Their negative talk tracks of like, I never do anything I say I'm going to do. Where if it's an aligned goal, you figured out, like you said, you didn't like to run. My husband this year was like, I think I want to he said, we should bring all of the plants in from our patio, put them in our storage room, get some grow lights and keep them alive all winter long. And I said, good luck with that.
right,
Like I don't want any part of that. I am not
yeah,
aligned with that.
yeah,
I will kill them. They will be dead by Thanksgiving. Like I
yeah.
don't want to be part of this. He's like, okay, I'm on it. Christine, we have got the most beautiful
Oh
plants in our
wow. So
storage
he
room.
was
Like
okay.
I can't wait to take them out this year because normally we have to do all this planting.
Sure.
And I'm like, look at you with your butterfly goal,
Yeah.
making these plants live. And they've not only lived, like they are flourishing. He's like, now if he's like the true testament will be if we can get them back outside and they love Mother Nature again.
Right. If they can leave the nest, if you can launch them into the world. Yeah. That's funny. I'll also share an experience that might be helpful for the people that are into your work, is that once you get to what you wanted to accomplish, it doesn't mean you have to want to live there. I was an
Right.
athlete. I was a field hockey player in my earlier life, and I had U.S. field hockey players that were my coaches. I knew a lot of people that had made it to that level, and I was a willed athlete. I wasn't really that naturally talented, so I wanted to get to U.S. trials like there was no tomorrow, and I fought tooth, and I got there, and then I got there, and I went, oh, all they do is play hockey all day. Like, and if you said to me, like, there's a hockey, we're going to play pickup go, I would run to it like there was I was running away from a fire. But when I got there and saw what the life was, what it would look like at that level to exclusively do that, which is what I didn't want it. So this is where I think it's okay to try these goals, right? Accomplish these things and realize if you don't like the tomato garden, then don't do it again, right? You've
Yeah,
done it. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're crazy ones. One of the ones I share from stage is a gal who was in her 40s and wanted to learn how to do a handstand. And it took her, I think, 23
That's
months to
hard.
actually to do it. Oh yeah, and she did figure it out, and of course now she takes like all like that this is like her signature thing. Like she'll do a
Sure.
handstand in front of the Eiffel Tower.
That's
And
great.
then everyone's like, "Wow, this is so cool." But she gained a lot of followers. She actually she did it, she put it online and shared it. And so many people like they were like, "We love that you're trying to learn how to do a handstand."
Yeah.
Like people this is the human aspect of connection that we
Right.
are lacking in our world right now that people are starving for. And when you give someone finally permission to do it and they're like and then they see everyone else doing it, they're like, "Oh, I can go do it too."
Yeah, it makes it's just infectious.
Yeah.
So what do you so earlier you said when you went to the social selling out of your corporate, you said it's different how you lead in that environment, right? It's
Mhm.
different how you get people to show up. And so is this part of where you created that, figuring that out, how to get people to want to not just work but be at work and in the work, and not just motivated for that paycheck? Is that part of what you were unpacking? And
I think that that's a big part of leading individuals in anywhere. And I think that that's why these butterfly goals do fuel culture is
yeah,
because people realize that they matter more. Their personal growth matters as much as their professional output.
yeah,
And when we create cultures of belonging, of helping people find out who they are as much as what they're doing for the organization, we create community, and people like to feel like they're part of something. And so that was really the key for that whole era of Stella and Dot, was that we had this amazing community of women who we all were there for a certain reason, but we all felt connected through community, and people stayed because that's why they stayed.
well, I think it's important that you're bringing that to not only a women-led business but to businesses that are predominantly dominated by men, because this isn't how we're socializing men in terms
Hmm.
of building that community. Sports and things do that, and maybe that not every male plays sports obviously, but they're expected to show up with a goal. And
Right.
I like that you're like, set a goal to build community rather than build community as the goal.
Yeah.
It's kind of back to my running thing, is that the simple things of setting a personal goal will build the community for you. And this is something that obviously it's better if people bring you in to do that, but it's just the first step they can take themselves as leaders, as something very actionable, to start saying, hey, let's just think outside the box. When you take the time to do that and bring that in with your family, with your kids, with your employees, with your team members, that I can see how that just creates something
Yeah, it
magnificent.
does. It fuels so much
Yeah,
camaraderie and culture
yeah,
within organizations. And then guess what people do? They go home and they start telling their family about it.
yeah,
And then that creates this connection between their work and their home.
yep,
And then they're excited to go back to work tomorrow, where instead of they were like taught some new technical skill and they felt like they sucked at it, they're like, "Oh my God, I'm not good enough.
yep,
I'm going to fail." But
yep,
instead it's just this belonging and possibility, which then fuels everything else that organizations are trying to do right now.
yeah. I think it's magnificent. So I'm so
Oh,
happy.
so Christine, what's your butterfly goal?
What's my butter? Well, so I kind of in the midst of it, because my listeners know I was injured in an accident when I was 28, and pretty devastatingly so. And so I went from hero to zero in terms of my athletic prowess. So only about 5 years, 4.5 years ago, I started playing tennis. So last year I went to tennis camp, which this was all an experiment. So part of my goal has been to resume being a very competitive athlete. I mean, tennis is really hard and I'm never going to be at the level I was younger, but to escalate my tennis ability in a very short period of time since I've started so much later in life. So it's been really, every day I go to the court, I had more years that I couldn't do that than I have been able to do that, and it's such a gift. It's
I
such a
love
gift.
that. So
Yeah.
you're like a butterfly goal in action in the making. I think it's
Yeah.
beautiful. One gal had one once that she always wanted to be a ball girl at the US Open.
Love it.
And she's retired, like she's more in that retirement age
Yep.
now. And so she found out though that she could do some volunteer work at the US Open. And so she was looking into doing that. And I was like, oh my God, I love that.
Yeah, and I think it's important, like, to just evolve it, right? Is
Yeah.
so, yeah, but I'm gonna think about something even smaller that I want to do after this conversation.
Okay.
Is what I'm
Let
gonna
me
do.
know.
So,
I would love to hear it.
we'll tell people where they can find you. Tell us the name of your book again.
Yeah, so the best place to find me is on my website, or just go to your chat GPT and say, who is Tara Renze? Tararenze. All of that's there for my keynotes. You can get my book on Amazon. My book is called Be Who You Came to Be. And it's on Amazon. There's also a companion journal that goes with it. I'm
Nice.
working on, my mom and I also have a children's book called Be Who You Came to Be as well, but it's BEE. It's about a little bee named
Oh,
Phoebe
cute.
who's trying to figure out who she is and what her strengths are. And she tries a lot of different, she tries to be a minor bee, and she tries to be a sweat bee, and she just
Mm,
fails and fails. And then along the way, she figures out who
I
she
love
is.
it. I love
It's a
it.
beautiful book for little kids. If you have one that's, they're trying to figure out their authenticity, or maybe they're having a hard time fitting in. And then I'm working on my third book, The Butterfly Goal Effect, right
Nice.
now.
Love it. When's that coming out?
Well, have it's a work in
In
progress.
process. Okay, so you don't have a date yet. That's fine.
I don't. It's being shopped right now through some different publishing houses.
Nice.
And so, probably will be next year
Well, I
sometime.
love
And
it.
we're
I
also
think
working on it. It hasn't been announced yet, but I'm going to just go ahead and debut it here that we're going to start the Butterfly Goal Effect show, where we're actually going to be doing a YouTube show where we're out meeting with people and finding out their butterfly goals and bringing them to life.
I love it. I think that's just it's like the what are those crowdsourcing things where you do the dancing, like bring people together and it'll just talk about a butterfly effect.
Yeah,
Just
that's
fan
that's
out
the
there.
idea, is that one small shift can change the world.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing such practical ways that people can start to put this into action right now and watch what happens from a marathon to a tomato garden. It doesn't to doing a handstand. I think it's great. So, and I'd
Absolutely.
love to have you back when you're ready to talk about your next book.
That would be wonderful. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for having me on the show today.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thank you everyone for listening today to Shine a Light. Find Tara Renze, two syllables in her last name, and she can speak and do work for you in your organization. So, all right, everyone, have a great day. Thank you, Tara.